Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of Walker. A great season premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I think this episode in particular, the season premiere, did a really good job kind of setting the tone. I think maybe, especially for the beginning parts of this season, it's going to be interesting to see how long a lot of this ends up lasting with Walker's circumstances of being kidnapped and just kind of that realization, like where Trey and Liam know something's off, but they're trying to protect Stella from it. And I think that's a beautiful contrast in this episode. Like everything Walker's doing to kind of keep his hopes alive, trying to keep from being broken, and at the same time, like his family and the people he loves and care about most, who care about him, are like they're trying to keep their hopes up and not be broken too. And it is this beautiful thing of kind of while his sanity's being worn down, their morale is also being worn down, and they're trying to be there for each other, and it's working to some extent, but it's like this family has been through too much. It's been tragedy after tragedy. It's just when it felt like we were on top of the world, everything was supposed to be great. This is Stella's graduation. It's supposed to be a beautiful moment, like her entire family's there, and this happens, and I think that's where this show always shines through when it comes to the heart, like when it comes to the Walker family, that heart between this large family, because obviously it extends to Larry, Trey, and Cassie as well, that there is this extended family. And even later on, Bonham saying oh man, so many police, rangers, even neighbors are here to help out. Like everyone came together for this situation, But once again, just the family dealing with it, like August and Stella having that conversation over, it's almost coming full circle, because what did we have at the beginning when Emily died? It was them as a family playing the game. So it's like the two of them trying to distract themselves from everything. And August bringing up that line of when Dad was doing the whole rodeo thing and Uncle Liam would leave. I was scared every time that he was going to come back being like, that he had to leave to identify Dad's body. And when he came back, there was a little sigh of relief, and I never really pushed on it, but he always came back looking sad. And even the fact is that Stella's like, no, I understand why you would even think that. I mean, Uncle Liam was going to adopt us. It's like, right, I do forget that was set up at the beginning of the series until Walker did come back. So they've been through this, the worry and concern, but it's never, I can't even say it's never been like this before, but I just thought that was such a, that was a heartbreaking line to know that August felt like that. And it wasn't just even him. Stella's like, no, I thought the same thing too. Like those concerns were there for her as well. They even take Abby. Abby's trying her best to stay strong, even to the point she's taking down the lights and everything. Bonham, it's like he's like, whoa. He's like, I was so concerned about everyone else's morale. It never crossed my mind I would have to be worried about yours. She's like, I've always done, I've always appeared to be okay, been able to keep my morale up, believe everything was going to be okay. But now, it's just so much that I'm not pretending anymore. That was always there in my heart, but now it's just, I can't. It's just too much to bear. She is scared. She even had that conversation with Larry where she was like, hey, I thought I blamed you when Cordell went straight into another job, went undercover. I blamed you. And he was like, oh, you never told me that. I never would have known. She was like, you were over every day checking in and everything. So I know that. And she's like, the reason why I never said anything, because I knew you were beating yourself up more than I could. You were already whatever I could have said to you, you were already saying to yourself. You already blamed yourself. So it's I know how much this family means to you and how you will move heaven and earth for Cordell. I get that. So I just thought that was a powerful moment too. Even Cassie's brother being there for Liam, because Liam and Cassie both kind of doing a little bit of grasping at straws, because for Cassie, it's history's repeating itself. And she even comes off, and I think they did a really nice job implementing this, that Cassie seems a little crazy, but it's because you're kind of like, Larry is like, oh, like, I always felt like it feels weird, because I'm always calling him Captain James. I always say James, because I was like, I don't call him Larry, do I? Usually don't call him by his first name, just like I don't call Cordell by his first name. I always say Walker. So I was like, because every time I said Larry, he's like, it seems weird. It's like, well, that's why, because I always call him James. The fact is that she found those nuts, and she's like, oh my God, this has to be a message from Sean. But to be fair, it's like, the place is run down, and there's a fresh pack of nuts. Like, I feel like there's... phrasing. It felt too but it could have easily been her reading too much into it. But once again, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean you're wrong, because she's already proved it. Even when she was paranoid, when she saw things that were there that no one else did, she's the one that kept going with the whole Miles thing, and she turned out to be right. There was so much more to it, so you can't completely discount it. And I think James is in that position where he doesn't. Like, he is going to listen, like, hey, you got an idea about something, we'll follow through. Like, you think the peanuts? I don't believe so, but dust it for fingerprints. Turns out there was nothing, but... because they had to cut through some chains to get through it, but the argument could be like, right, someone could have easily hopped the fence or been in there, but it's just like, everything that's there is covered in dust, like no one's been in there for a while, and there just happens to be like a fresh pack, and it seemed too suspicious to me that it's like, right, because Cassie reads it as, oh, Sean was trying to lead us somewhere else to buy himself more time, and I think that was the case. The moment they arrived, I was like, Walker's not there. There's no way he is. There's no way the first major place you're checking, you're going to find him. It's like, no. These people are professionals. Sadly, they're really, really good at what they do. So they were able to buy themselves enough time, because even they know that they're on a bit of a timetable. So, but they're not too concerned with that, but we'll talk about that soon. But they're all kind of grasping at straws, because... and Liam even told that story of when they were younger, Walker would always pretend like he was hurt somewhere just to pop up and like scare Liam and be like, oh, I'm fine, ha ha ha. But Liam's like, I always knew on some level I knew it every time he was doing it that he was faking it. But it didn't make me worry any less, because all it has to do is be one time that it's real, like it is now. That's why he can never ever be okay. He can never just accept it as like it's just a joke, like my brother's messing with me. But circling to Walker's circumstances, they are torturing him for something. Because at first I was like, are they trying to... they talk about the fact that they're trying to mentally break him, because they're trying to fill that void of Fenton, what he did for them. They want Walker to do that, because like Walker... well, because... the fact is, they were like, oh yeah, this is like the war hero and stuff like that. I'm like, because that was also the big thing that Trey talks about later on too. He's like, the fact is, if this is about Miles and stuff, why not come after any one of us? Why not? He's like, why not me? Why not James? Why not you? Especially considering she had the most direct connection to both Miles and Fenton. So it was like, why Walker specifically? Like, they must have had their eyes on him for a while. And that's why I'm wondering, there has to be some, like, is this completely devoid of the Serrano situation? It feels like there might have been something related to that. Because wasn't there something in season 1, and do correct me if I'm wrong, that tied to Walker's history? Because wasn't he in the military? Like, wasn't there something set up pretty early on about, like, some stuff that related to his time in the military circling? But, like, maybe he wasn't in the military. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. 'Cause once again, they call him, like, the war hero and stuff. So I think he did go into the military. I feel like that's the case, but maybe I'm mistaken. And I love that Walker did try to, I think, control the situation, because he was trying to, like, kind of break away at any cracks in the armor. Like that first guy, he's like, oh, what about Jenny? And it's like, wait, like you're probably, like, the fact is you thought you blindfold me. I picked up on some details. I know the light I'm seeing outside isn't artificial. It's real. So wherever I am, it's above ground. It's not like I'm in like a little basement area. It's like, no, wherever I am is above ground. So, well, I mean, it still could be a basement, but it was more so the conversation of, that it wasn't like a full, like, underground facility. It wasn't a facility built like underground. It's like, no, it is above ground to some extent for there to be, like, real and not artificial light shining through. And I thought it was so interesting, too, that who's his companion throughout all this? It's Emily. She's there to be a personification of him thinking, it's like, right, you know me, Emily, and, like, I talk stuff out loud to work through stuff. And, you know, it's so interesting because we've only got peeks into Walker and Emily's relationship. And, I mean, obviously considering the dire circumstances, like, them butting heads like they did to some extent, him just kind of getting frustrated. Like, it's so interesting because we never saw that dynamic, but it was also, once again, he was basically butting heads on himself because that's what she was. She's just, once again, a personification of having someone to kind of bounce things off of, essentially, you know? So, trying to pick up every little thing about the environment, trying to stay strong, and obviously the guy he was trying to like try to get to, they immediately know like, oh, we know what tactics you're trying to prove, so we're going to remove your friend from this. And the main guy, Sean, the one who went on the date with wasn't that in the season, that part where that was actually in the season 2 finale, wasn't it? I think it was. Either way, he's the one kind of taking over. It seems like he's the leader to this. I don't know if he is the main guy or whether there's someone even above them. But Walker does like get like some note from someone, and there's a message because of like the bumps. It was at first I was like, is that supposed to be Morse? I mean, not necessarily Morse code, but I thought like the numbers would signify something like, okay, 7-5, what was it, 0-0? And he was like, oh, it was like some flight related thing or something, but he was like, no, we're not in an airport or anything, so what was that about? It was just like, right, it was about just maybe saying like, oh, I'm someone you could trust. But it is that thing of like, well, how much do you know? Like, even with everything going down, it's like, right, this lady, she opens up to you, she's saying like, right, you're being the new guy. He's like, well, what happened to the old guy? It's like, you know what happened to the old guy. The old guy was fitting, and they're trying to like break you. And it's like, and even he's like, how do I know what you're saying to me isn't what they just want you to say? It's like, you don't know what to fully trust. I mean, obviously you're kind of having to like have a little bit of a break in reality, considering you're seeing your dead wife and you're personifying her. You need her to be there to kind of not feel so alone in such a desperate situation. It's the only way to kind of keep yourself strong. So, but later on he hears her being dragged away, and he hears like the numbers and like Silver, and she's calling out, and he's like, oh my god, I'm in a hospital, because he's like, Silver is like which I never knew that, you know. I mean, it makes sense, like, you know, just like schools have drills to be like, okay, this means this, like, of course, like hospitals would have that. I don't think I've ever watched anything that's ever, I mean, maybe if I've watched more medical dramas. I don't watch hardly any medical dramas. The last one I watched was like a couple years ago. That's a whole tangent, but my point is, I've never really heard those codes pop up of what that's like at a hospital when like an active shooter or something. Was like Code Silver or something like that. I thought was interesting. But she gets dragged away, but I'm like, how do you know that's not all part of her performance? You don't. Because I was like, are we going to hear like a gunshot? But it's like, oh, she just got dragged away. And Sean being like, oh yeah, like you have a way of like pushing everyone away, but don't worry, we'll find someone. It's like, she's explained to Walker the reason why they're letting her talk to him is like, they want you to have a little bit of hope, and they're trying to take it away from you. And they did by taking her away, because it's like, right, the only other real human connection he had, because she says that she's a reporter that was looking into all of this, but Walker's going to have to look into it when it's all said and done. Because Kobe Bell is in the show, obviously the actor who plays James, it made me start thinking about Burn Notice. And now this is where we get into that territory. It's going to be a little spoilers for Burn Notice. I won't go into it too much, but there's a character that went dark side near the end of the show, and I almost wondered, could they be setting up a similar thing for Walker, where he's like, no, I'm going to fight against this, I am, but then eventually he does break. I don't think it's going to come to this, but it did pop into my mind. It's like, oh, well, he had a very similar circumstance to said character from Burn Notice, where they went a little evil for a little while because they got confused and they were manipulated. It's like, it's kind of like a cult when you're at your lowest, like someone comes in to kind of sway you. Well, these people are breaking you down so they can build you up into what they need you to be. So even when you go back to just being at your work or whatever, well, first and foremost, the trauma associated with all this is going to leave a scar on him. So there's that. Two, what if he did go back to work, but he wasn't himself anymore, that he had been changed? I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he's going to be fine, but is he in a moment where, like, right, Emily's left him, but she's reminding him, because he was like, oh, I'm not broken, I'm okay. And she's like, you're not broken, and I might have to leave you. And sadly, who do they bring in? They brought in Liam. they're bringing in motivation. It's like, oh, we don't have to worry about, because they knew breaking him wouldn't be easy, and especially because they don't have enough time to spend as much time as they want to, considering like, right, you kidnapped a ranger at a very inopportune time too, but they knew that this is the only time they probably have an opportunity to grab him. Once again, going back to Trey's notion of like, they're well trained and they knew to grab him here and there, but like, how did they know? Like, they had to have been watching Walker, but to know about the race and when to sneak in to grab him too. So, but now that Liam's here, they don't have to worry about torturing him. It's like, oh, we'll torture you by torturing your brother, you know? Because didn't she also, the journalist, didn't she mess up and say like, don't you have a brother? Like, the moment, now in retrospect, the fact is Liam got, because the last time we saw Liam in the episode, he was going off with Cassie to check like a neighbor's like camera or whatever to see if they caught like any part of the vehicle I was leaving. But I'm like, for them to have Liam, and then immediately I'm like, because once again, it's like, how much do we know if anything's real and just like them not messing with you? Like, they could have drugged you or something. I mean, granted, they have been like torturing you, dousing you in water, and well, there was like this little like chair set up, and I was like, are they about to waterboard him? They never actually showed the scene, like, you know. So I don't know if I think they kind of skipped over that, because I think probably CW wise they were like, that probably would have been a little too much. I don't know. Maybe they just felt like that would have been just a little too much to show, so they didn't want to show it. Because I think at one point we see him just like laying on the floor after the fact. So I think they waterboarded him, but I don't know. Because every other time it's like, right, they just doused him with water and then they like electrocuted him with a kind of a tasing rod. Like, what this really is all about, I don't know. Once again, like, the notion of, yeah, you're trying to break Walker and everything, sure, but why him? What is this all specifically about? And to go through this much trouble to get him, knowing the hell that you'd be bringing yourself down upon yourself, but once again, they bought themselves enough time. They knew, like, right, we have at least this amount of time. They probably have a contact or whatever that could, like, not unless there's someone on the inside for them keeping them apprised of the cops' operation. So maybe that's why they know like how much time they have before they have to like abandon all this. We'll ultimately have to wait and see. Obviously, Colton and Jerry came back to kind of support everyone, and I love that line from August where he's like, "Right, me and like, I get it. You guys wanted to protect us because we were younger, but we're older now. We've seen a lot." Which Jerry's like, "Yeah, you guys have, but we just don't want to try and push to see what your limit is, you know." And even Jerry's like, "I'm not. You might be okay, and I'm not just here for your sake. I'm here for my sake too." Because she's like, working on these cookies and stuff like that, baking them is my way of dealing with the stress of this situation. And it's like, I'm not okay with all of this, you know. And I love her being like, you know, Colton and Stella go upstairs and she's like, "That's okay, right? Like, I'm kind of out of my depth here." Because, like, yeah, they're graduated. They're like 18. They're out of high school. Like, do I say something? Do I not? Because they are technically adults here. But I think it's also like, I think the rule applies. I think, at least the rule I think that would apply is you might be adults, but you're still living under the other adults' roofs, like, so it's like, right, you're still on the ranch, so it's like, until you get your own place, none of that shenanigans is going to happen. So I just kind of ending things on a little more of a lighthearted tone, but it was also just like, once again, Jerry just being like, right, I'm here because I'm not okay and I need to be here. So, you know, here, you know, helping each other out, because Stella and August, it's like, right, we want to do other stuff, but like, August is like, "No, what are you talking about? Like, okay, I'll help too." She's like, "No, you know, I've got to be the one responsible. I'm the older sister." It's like, you literally graduated out of high school like 5 minutes ago. Don't like act like you're the adult before. It's like, while dad's away, like with everything going on, I have to be the one that step in. And she's like, and August calls her out saying, you know, "You're just like dad. You kind of got this hero complex." And it's like, right, you go off and do that. What you're going to do is leave your little brother to clean up just like dad. And it's like, yeah, Liam had to be the one, always had to be the one to kind of clean up in Cordell's wake. So it's almost like interesting how history would, like, the fact is August pointed it out, I thought was so fascinating. It's like, yeah, history kind of repeating itself to some extent. So, like I said, a great way to start off this season, and it's not like everything was resolved. We have no idea how long Cordell is going to be in those circumstances. Maybe it's resolved next episode, maybe it's not. But it's just, once again, that ebb and flow of like hope and then despair, like, you know, the roller coaster that this episode kind of puts you through, kind of feeling what everyone's feeling. And I'm just so curious to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good